What is up, YouTube? It is your Bomb here. Welcome back to another Honkai Impact third what was I saying? Reaction video. Today, still back on the playlist. We got Who is Saw? The Abyss of the Sea of Quantum Explained. Saw, just SA, is a character that has come up a few times in these part 1.5 videos here. So yeah, video from Home Labs of the analysis of Saw, and just looking ahead just a little bit. I'm seeing that we're close to part 2 here. Like, we're very close I think we're actually gonna get to part 2. The part 2 portion of this playlist today, which is nuts, because that means the videos going forward I think are gonna be about part 2, and that means I've seen all like the lore videos about part 1. They're not like every single video ever existed, of course, but like the ones that are on the playlist, which covered a lot. Honestly, I covered a lot. This was a really well put together playlist, so yeah, let's get started here.
Who is Sa? Is
Who
Vita
is
Sa?
Sa?
Are Sa and the Cocoon of Finality the same? Is Sa from Venus or Mars? Did Sa create the Sky People? Is Sa evil? Then why hot? Look, the universe is filled with entities that are beyond human comprehension. From talking dollar bills and random gods that make you play Go, to giant meatballs that can reset the world. If you look at it from this perspective, a human who got powers from the Sea of Quanta, started absorbing energy until it became an eldritch god, wanted to create their own civilization at the edge of the solar system, and got defeated by her literal clone, her emotions, a flaming burb, and a girl who watched way too much Star Wars, isn't too far-fetched. Welcome! In this video I am going to explain everything you need to know about Sa, aka Dummy Mommy Eldritch Horror. But before we begin, shout out to Hikaru for finding Chibi Prometheus in the last video.
Oh yeah, is there one in this one? He didn't say. Maybe there's not one in this one, but yeah, I also pointed that out in the last video of this we watched. I don't know if that was that specific one, but yeah, I like Saw's eyes, like how they're like pink, purple, something like that. They're very different, very cool design.
More than 250 million years ago, Purusha, commonly known as Venus, fought the Cocoon of Finality, which they called the Abyss. Much like on Earth, the Honkai on Venus grew stronger as the civilization made scientific breakthroughs. The greatest scientists on Venus, Dr. Norton, Dr. Tyler, Dr. Mara, and Dr. Vita, were gathered to come up with a plan. Just like Sue, Vita was also a doctor on Venus. And for everybody who still says that Vita is not a Sue variant, maybe you should visit a doctor yourself and have your eyes checked. One day, the people of Venus acquired an endless energy source from the Sea of Quanta. Vita, the director and leading researcher, proposed to use that energy and link the consciousness of every living person of Purusha to secure humanity's future and defeat the Honkai. Basically, Project Stigma, but instead of merging everyone's minds into a dream, they wanted to do it in a simulation. They called it the Soul System. The plan failed due to the Honkai invading the data space and taking over the system, similar to what the Hersher of Corruption did in the Elysian realm. Dr. Norton and Dr. Taylor died, leaving only Dr. Mara and Vita behind. Dr. Mara wanted to leave Purusha and run away from the Honkai, while Vita wished to remain and fight. She wanted to remove the efficiency restrictions of the Soul System and have the energy from the Sea of Quanta overflow and destroy the Honkai. Mara warned her that the power from the Sea of Quanta could bring an entirely new disaster, but Vita did it anyway, resulting in the death of every living person on Purusha, except for herself. Instead of dying, Vita was blessed by the sea with powers to use her imagination. This was her first step in becoming Sa. After she realized that there were no survivors, Vita started the Soul System and saw that the human consciousness backups didn't disappear. So, to preserve the people of Purusha, she linked them to an ecological simulation system. The events during the second act of chapter 39 happen in that simulation, and all the people we interact with are simulations of the real people who died. This is also when Vita created her cleaners, aka the APHO constructs, to fight the Honkai beasts that appeared inside the simulation. After Dr. Mara's simulation tried to escape, Vita turned her consciousness into a defense unit capable of commanding the cleaners. At some point during the same time, Vita discarded her human name and adopted the name Sa. After many years, Sa finished constructing a giant spaceship meant to reach the depths of the Sea of Quanta, called the Star Traveler, and set out on a journey to revive the Venusian civilization.
The abyss of the Sea of Quanta.
To complete their plan, Sa needed energy. A lot of it. And what better way to farm energy than making the bubble worlds from the Sea of Quanta your nuclear power plants? Sa implemented rules into the bubble worlds through wishes. If the people of a bubble world wished for something, like for example I wish right now that everybody who watches this video will subscribe and hit that like button for more Honkai content, those wishes would become new rules. We've seen this with the Star Rock on Fallen Star, the bubble world that Kira and Nigrat visited, where people ran out of resources and wished for a new energy source, and with the Sage of the High Tower and the Underworld in the Salt Snow Holy City. The people of the Holy City wished for a sage that transported the souls of the dead to the afterlife. The Subnormal Stigma 14 was born as the sage and the Country of Iron Sand as the afterlife. The souls in the Country of Fire and Sand then in return wished to return to life, so the bubble worlds started merging, resulting in the destruction of both. Sa understood that human nature is self-serving and always leads to destruction, so they waited for these bubble worlds to destroy themselves before taking all the energy which resulted in the process. After a bubble world was destroyed, Mara and her cleaners would, well, clean the world of any energy left. Once a bubble world was completely empty, a new set of humans would appear and Sa would repeat the process. To assist in this process, Sa created multiple proxies. One of those proxies was Vita, who looked exactly like Sa when they were human. Vita's job was to observe the energy harvest and deal with any interferences. One day, with the help of Mara, Vita awakened her own consciousness and took over Sa's previous name. At some point, Mara escaped from Sa and took some of the cleaners with her. The Star Traveler was flying on the edge of the solar system for tens of thousands of years, never able to break out of it. The intertidal zones of imaginary internal energy formed a natural barrier that blocked interstellar transit to other worlds. This meant that Sa was stuck here, always hiding from the cocoon of finality. Mara managed to escape through a stargate, freeing herself from Sa and this world. It is very likely that the sky people that we see in APHO are the cleaners that Mara fled with, but more on that in another video.
Interesting.
As time passed, Sa's existence became more inclined towards the Sea of Quanta, turning them into a hot eldritch horror. Eventually, their physical body reached its limits, forcing them to build a new vessel inside the Sea of Quanta to control all the gathered energy. Sa wanted to surpass the cocoon of finality and build their own end to the imaginary tree, replacing the cocoon as the entity that governs this world. Sa kept the consciousness of the 12 billion people from Purusha and wanted to find a small planet at the edge of the solar system, far from the cocoon's influence, where they could implant their own rules and revive Purusha. Sa used the energy from the intertidal zones of imaginary internal energy to transform a dwarf planet into a place suitable for housing human life. That planet was later named Phosphorus by proxy Vita. The last thing that Sa needed to do was to find bodies for the 12 billion consciousnesses. And luckily for her, a spaceship from Earth carrying the genomes of humanity flew right nearby. That spaceship was the Ark. Sa ambushed Grisio, put her to sleep, and stole all the genetic material. After the first batch of new Purushians, Venus people, was born, Sa descended to observe them. By this point, Sa already lost their physical body and could only descend as a projection. As they interacted, Sa noticed that the humans of Phosphorus were a bunch of assholes and decided to wipe them all out. Yep, she's a god alright. Apparently, the people of Purusha were pretty horrible, so she gave up on them. Instead, they decided to cultivate an entirely new set of humans from the genomes on the Ark. To make sure that the new humans would not turn just as rotten, Sa took inspiration from Grisio and decided to separate their colors/emotions. Sa wanted to give authority to these colors and have them lead humanity on the right path. After they were done, Sa tasked proxy Vita with shaping their appearances. And Vita shaped them after herself because why change perfection?
Because why not?
Vitas were born. Sa gave them the authority to summon the artifact, which would flood Phosphorus and kill everyone. Of course, the little Vitas didn't know that, thinking that using the artifact would save the city. In Sa's eyes, if things got so bad that they needed a miracle, the civilization was a failure. After everyone was dead, Sa would create a new batch of humans and the civilization on Phosphorus would start anew. The Phosphorus in the main story is in the 9th cycle, by the way. So, we have a god that keeps resetting a civilization to achieve its goals. Does it sound familiar? Sa and the Cocoon of Finality have more in common than just how they operate. The cycle of death and rebirth is very common in the Chinese culture, so it's no surprise that we see samsaras all over the Hoyoverse games. The character used in Sa's Chinese name reads as Suo, and it can be found in the word Saha or Saha word, which represents a world where life is subject to the cycle of birth and death. Oh, and fun fact, the ruler of the Saha world is Brahma, and Saha is just another name for it. Now, who might I ask is tied with Brahma? Yep, it's Kevin. And Sa has many more references to the Flame Chasers, essentially making Venus a place where Sa took Kevin's place and implemented the equivalent of Project Stigma, but ended up making things much worse.
Sa's downfall.
It is no secret that Sa was afraid of the Cocoon of Finality. It seldom dared to explore the borders of Earth and Mars to avoid detection, only dabbling with some of the bubble worlds near Earth. After ascending to a higher plane, Su could observe the entire solar system, albeit gradually as he was adjusting to his new power. He noticed Sa a long time ago, but chose to not take any action because the Cocoon of Finality was a far greater threat. Interestingly enough, Sa was aware of Su all along, but chose to ignore him because they didn't consider him a threat. After the Cocoon of Finality was dealt with, Su put in motion a plan to bring down Sa. He teleported Fu Hua to Phosphorus as a projection to save Grisio and confront Sa. Because Su is not part of this world anymore, his only connections here remained through the people he interacted with, which are Fu Hua, Senti, and Durandal. And before you say that Su never interacted with Senti, keep in mind that Senti was born in Fu Hua's body, so there was a connection between them there. Fu Hua, together with Grisio, Vita, the small Vitas, and even Mistalin, who was guided there by Su as well, fought against Sa, styling them enough so that Kiana was able to snipe them with the power of finality, destroying all of Sa's roots in the proper world. But even so, Sa wasn't really dead. The majority of Sa's body was still in the Sea of Quanta, but they were severely weakened, needing tens of thousands of years before they could come back. Su's plan was a success. But wait, there's more. While everything else was going on, Vita put her own scheme in motion. She snuck up on Sa's remains in the Sea of Quanta and took her authority and eyes of body. Those are the same eyes that Sue possessed, allowing Vita to be omniscient. This means that now she knows basically everything. And yes, that includes what you do every night looking at her fan art. So, is Sa completely dead? Technically, no. Sa is still in the Sea of Quanta, but they are kinda trapped there without knowing what's going on the proper world, not to mention that they are weakened after Kiana blasted them across the solar system. Sa was an interesting enemy because, unlike the Cocoon of Finality, we see them gradually becoming a god. As they kept discarding their humanity, they started thinking more and more like a computer, always choosing the most optimal solutions, to the point where even Moriarty mocked them for being extremely predictable. And the irony hits even harder when you realize that Sa was defeated by her humanity. The 7 small Vitas were the embodiments of her emotions and virtues, and Proxy Vita was implied to be subconsciously created by Sa to preserve her humanity. And you can say that Vita is more human than anybody during this story. She is unpredictable, always chasing her own interests, self-centered, and acts on a whim. She doesn't have any lofty ambitions to become a god, she just wants to be free. Honkaiimpact 3rd was always a game about humanity breaking free from the shackles of destiny, and destiny was always portrayed as some kind of higher being manipulating the fate of mortals. But in the end, humanity's perseverance always comes out on top, breaking the shackles and freeing themselves from their fate. Vita and Sa are the perfect representation of what the Honkai series is all about, and this is why their story was so interesting to watch. I was born because of God, and God died because of me.
Dang. Yeah, it's very interesting. So yeah, that was the full story of Saw. Apparently, I've you know, in some of the last videos, this story was kind of, you know, brought to my attention, or like kind of explained, but to have it all like together, it was interesting. And yeah, yeah, very very cool, very interesting. This how Saw you know, started and then just slowly became what she was, and then got defeated and is in the Sea of Quanta. Very nice, very nice. W video as well. Let me see, was that oh yeah, last one was Who is Vita, okay. And why is okay, so yeah, why is Grease so okay, yeah. I forgot if this was like the first Saw video or the second one, but there was a Vita video. Next up, we have How Vita Overthrew a God, part 1.5 from Vita's point of view, Saw's downfall again, but this one is from Potato Almanac. It has been a little bit, I feel like, since a Potato Almanac video is on this playlist, so let's get to it.
You have many characters. You have the heroes, the bad guys, some anti-heroes here and there, and then you have the characters that just does whatever the hell they want. Today we're gonna talk about such character who's a scientist running away from the Honkai. Except this time, we aren't talking about someone from Earth, but Venus. In this universe, there is a civilization outside of Earth, like on Venus or Mars, that had long been destroyed by the Honkai. For Venus, unlike the third planet, they didn't quite get the embrace thing about the Honkai, so their plan to save themselves boils down to taking whatever's left of their civilization and take it elsewhere to be rebuilt, preferably somewhere the Honkai couldn't reach, and whatever's left was Vita. She has this power that came from her civilization's extensive research on the Sea of Quanta. It allows her to exert influence over the sea, like creating worlds, setting ground rules for worlds, and many more. And it's this power she planned to use to its full potential to achieve her goal. After she left her home behind on her spaceship that was a mech, because of course it's a mech, she finds herself right on the edge of the solar system, because apparently there's an imaginary wall or something preventing her from going any further. The reason she's looking for the furthest possible place was that if you remembered from the moon arc, each celestial object comes with its own area of bubble worlds, and the influence of the Honkai, or the cocoon, happens to get weaker the further you are from its source, Earth basically. So the idea is she goes as far away as possible from Earth, hide herself in the Sea of Quanta in that area so as to force the cocoon, or the abyss as she calls it, to basically find the needle in a haystack to get to her. This is very important because making a world in the sea costs a lot of energy that needed to be slowly gathered, so she needed to find a way to not get caught with her pants down. And once she gets strong enough from all the energy she gathered, she can become somewhat of a cocoon that rules the immediate area. And the Earth cocoon would naturally be at a disadvantage if they try to get to her, as they're so far away from their turf. In theory, that is. Because, spoiler alert, Vita didn't get that far. Well, actually it became Sa since her departure from Venus, cause she wanted to be extra by leaving her name and mortal coil behind, so it can be more symbolic when she gets owned. Anyways, calling this entire plan a big task would be an understatement. So she got more help by making proxies of herself. And it just happened that in an ironic twist, one of them literally looks and acts like her old self before she left it behind. And it's this proxy who will be our protagonist for today. Now, Sa didn't particularly like her abandoned self coming to haunt her, but kept her around anyway because turns out she's pretty good at her job. Little did she know at this point that this proxy would go on to orchestrate the downfall of her master in the most spectacular way. And here's how she did it. As Sa's proxies, they are given a portion of her power, which, as I talked about earlier, was about influencing the Sea of Quanta. In the story, this comes in the form of omniscience, reading people's mind, altering memories, along with adjusting the laws of certain worlds in the sea. Like adding a system where wishes are granted, but granted in a way that eventually leads to that world's destruction. Like this one that needed a source of energy, so the rule granted it. But the thing it granted them were unstable energy that is being inserted directly into the bubble, eventually leading to its swelling and exploding. As Sa backs ordered 3
Oh, we're still with. Wait. Oh, so wait. I was. Were those tax?
and exploding. As Sa backs ordered.
Why would you? Why? I know the source of the video isn't the focus, but I can't help. Why would you do that?
Into the bubble, eventually leading to its swelling and exploding. As Sa backs ordered.
Oh my goodness.
The energy. Usually puts out a proxy to check on the process and handle any cleanup if needed. Then one day, the proxy just gains sentience like how you did at the age of 4. And with this new ability to think for herself, she started to have some funny ideas, like naming herself Vita after Sa's former self. This name will be what I call our protagonist.
So Sa was like the original
I think there's an
Vita.
event coming soon that seems to be expanding her backstory, but it's like a month away or 2. So I'm gonna keep this part short. So Vita gains sentience, and maybe because her world condition wasn't satisfactory or something, she starts plotting to overthrow her creator. The situation was that Sa, as her creator, has limitless control over what Vita does, but Sa over the years had mostly been meditating while letting her goons take care of the operation as she waits for the byproduct. This to Vita meant that she had free reign on what she could do, provided she doesn't cause too much of a ruckus. So one day, Vita was made aware of a development in one of the worlds that was targeted by Sa's wishing rule. So she goes there to check it out, and there she met Seele after being kidnapped there by Miston and Prometheus. The story is a bit long-winded, but basically, since Project Stigma failed, some stigmas were left behind as waste, so Miston and Prometheus decided to take it upon themselves to clean them up. And so that brings them to the world that was targeted by Sa's operation. Like I just said, a world getting targeted by Sa's rule meant that it's eventually gonna get destroyed. And the Stigma thing that found its way here and now calls herself the Sage knows this and wanted a replacement that can hopefully stop this. So she enlists the help of Miston to kidnap Seele here, which then alerted Vita to the shenanigans that was about to go down. As Seele and those who were unfortunate enough to get dragged along attempt to find their way back by contacting Earth, Seele would be forced to take over the Sage's role in order to do just that, by contacting Kiana. Now remember, Vita was granted a degree of Sa's power, so she was able to know what they're going to do. So she decided to tell Sa about this. Look, these people are trying to contact finality and they are already taking control of this world we've been monitoring. We need to shut it down, because there's nothing Sa fears more than the abyss, or in this case, the person who took over the cocoon. Okay, Sa said, I'm gonna quickly smite their bridging attempt real fast, and I'm going to give you a bigger portion of my power to deal with them. And this goes on as things escalate, as Seele and her gang somehow found a way to abuse Sa's rule and make a Hersher out of herself. Now, this is a big fucking deal. At this moment, Sa have three choices: personally intervene, retreat from this bubble universe, or to give Vita even more power to deal with them. She chose the last one, and that's exactly what Vita wanted, because she had just been given enough power to break off her connection with Sa, and now she's free. The heroes clean up their mess, contact Earth, had a nice walk around, and go back to business. Oh yeah, and both series are separate entities now. That's cool, I guess. For Vita, however, she still had more stuff to be done. Before we continue, we need to go back to the time when Sa recently set up shop near the edge of the solar system. During that time, there was another spaceship that appeared in the region. That was the Ark. You know, the one that Grisio boarded. And now that I see what the ship looks like, I feel like you can fit a lot more in there than a single person, but anyway, Sa sees the ship and decided to capture and inspect it. Also keep in mind, early on Sa was a lot more active than nowadays, so she finds a reconstruction kit and Guizio on board, and so decided to test out those technologies on the physical planet in the proper world. The experiment went okay with few developments, the most important one being the act of splitting the emotions that made up Sa and have them govern themselves, which was inspired by how Guizio can see emotion and represent them with colors, as she puts it. And so, as time passed, Sa went into her shut-in phase, and Vita was mostly left alone to take care of the experiments. And now that Vita is free, she couldn't really just show up on Sa's doorstep willy-nilly, so now it's right back to waiting for an opportunity. And it came when Su, seeing what Guizio is going through, sent Fuhua to this planet, though without being able to tell her anything. Yeah, that's Su who became some kind of extra-dimensional entity after dying, so he can do this now. Anyways, Hua, who by the way got projected there, so not like physically transported, was pretty much lost, though eventually finding a way to Guizio somehow. Vita, seeing the opportunity, decided to say hello to her, which involved attacking her with her goons, so she could stay in her position and go there herself. It didn't work, so Vita goes back into hiding. Since Fuhua's arrival, the planet also started to see Honkai beast outbreaks, which the heroes had no choice but to help fight. There's also this thing that had quite a bit of history with Hua. It was swooped up and put in a display case at the planet's museum by Vita. But then one day, this thing, or Moriarty, escaped, and then started to do some typical evil stuff that Hua felt obligated to stop. He looks just like Otto, though isn't really him, just his backup body that somehow gains sentience, still just as annoying as the real one though. By then, the situation has evolved in a way.
Be careful, that lad.
Fuhua and Grisio on a goose chase while leaving chaos everywhere he goes. But unbeknownst to Hua, his endgame wasn't about causing damage itself, but it was in order to provoke a response. From Sa specifically, cause he somehow figured out the nature of Sa and Vita just by sitting in a display case at the museum. So Vita now saw another opportunity and drags Hua into her personal space again, but this time she's not gonna attack her but ask her nicely if she can tag along. Hua reluctantly agreed and took her in. Remember the virtues of Sa that she left behind to govern themselves? Well, they have this tool they used to govern that was a system where they come together and wipe the world clean along with alerting Sa. They didn't actually know it at the time, but after being harassed by Moriarty for so long, they went through with it. The action had the desired effect of causing a cataclysmic flood that everyone took shelter from in the Ark, as Sa was also alerted in the process. So everyone was kind of forced to meet her with Moriarty.
This is brought up already, but that is why I taking shelter from a flood in the Ark. Not the most subtle reference, but a W reference indeed.
They're not actually allies, more like Moriarty leading them on in a way that would see them getting into a fight with Sa. So, at this moment, Moriarty transformed himself into energy and go to Sa in order to annoy her into committing to this fight. Back to the heroes. They planned their assault, and while doing that, Fuhua tried to activate her Honkai beast form, which gets her immediately smitten by Sa. Luckily, Su intervened and prevented her from getting thrown out of the planet and revealed himself to her. He also brought her extra help in the form of Miston. Yeah, the one that kidnapped
She's
Seele
helping
at the start.
Jess.
She actually lost her physical body fighting Vita alongside Seele and the rest. But that's not something our Su cannot solve. Miston is someone whose power I still do not get to this day. Let's stick to talking about what she did, not how she did it. With Miston's help, she gets Hua out of this little space she's stuck in and meet with the rest. They had a quick talk over and then go to fight Sa.
Subway. Oh yeah, I remember this part from like the boss fight level thing. Was this part of? I seen this before. I don't know, it was part of the boss fight. Yeah, it was.
The fight was intense, and it gets to a point that Sa was about to lose, and she tries to run away, like a puss. But Miston lets her exit and worked to keep her very still for a particular reason. Right now, Sa's like looking at Miston, mad confused right now, but she won't be for too long. As Kiana comes in with a record-breaking snipe on target, destroying Sa into pieces. A bit earlier before this, Kiana has been told to shoot at this specific spot in the universe. Next to her was a projection of Prometheus, who's been relaying information from Su as he, alongside Miston, guides Kiana bullet onto the target. It's pretty convenient because with how Su is right now, they have a zero ping communication line that spans from Earth to the edge of the solar system. And so, Sa is no more, as whatever remnant she was left with was spat on by Moriarty and absorbed by Vita. And so, this was how a little clone overthrew her creator and achieved true freedom. What she's gonna do with all this power is anyone's guess. I think I should learn all about this when I finish part 2, but I haven't played through all of it yet, and that's the end of the video. Hopefully it was entertaining. I'm planning on doing a video on part 2 after I finish playing through it. So if you like this style of video, like and subscribe.
Yeah, part 2. So part 2... The releases of the game timelines are a little confusing for me. Because, like, a post-Honkai Odyssey, like, took place after the end of part 1. But part 1 wasn't even, like, finished yet. I don't even know if it was close to finished yet. I think that might have been... Was that before the Flight Chaser stuff? I forget. And then... Now, part 1. I mean, this one's not crazy. Like, part 1.5 coming out, like, after part 2. Because sometimes that happens. But, like, I thought like after part 1. And then, like, it's not, like, 1,000%, like, released in chronological order. It doesn't seem like. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. I'm just going off of what the context clues I'm getting from these videos. But yeah, interesting. Part 2 is out, so we are upon the part 2 videos coming very, very soon here, it seems. Yeah, it was a very, very interesting for Vita and Saw. Interesting story there. They were still cooking with storylines in part 1.5. So yeah, and the Saw boss fight was always pretty cool. Like when Fuha it was like Subway Surfers kind of thing with the board. But that was cool though. Alright, this next one is actually the next Honkai XP and HSR. A lore guide for so Honkai Star Rail. Interesting.
This quote is of the Marshal of the Shanzou's Cloud Knights, who is most likely an XP of a character in Honkaiimpact 3rd called Hua, a soldier of Firemoth from 50,000 years ago, also known as the Celestial Genii of the Ancient East, who will kill any and all that are corrupted, and Fu Hua, the person whose actions in the past millennia made her into the person she is today. Now, this Marshal, I feel, is going to be an important character in the Shanzou, and since the Shanzou is going to have another chapter eventually, I feel that Hua is going to be important in this chapter when she comes out. So before that, let me explain the story of a person whose long life changed her for good in the end, at a cost of a long time of suffering.
Oh. It was a video
Hua
on
was
Fuha.
born 50,000 years ago in the previous era when technology was extremely advanced. However, as the daughter of a martial arts owner, that kind of technology was rare for her to see. One day, she transferred to a different school in a city called Sapphire. She would stay here for a long time until her life has turned around when she encountered the Honkai, a force of nature that wants to destroy humanity. She was weak and alone, trying to escape from them, until she was saved by a soldier named Himiko. And no, not the same Himiko as the one you know. After Himiko saved her, Hua joined Himiko's squad in Firemoth, a secret organization that fights against the Honkai. After some time, like a year after the event, Hua and her squad enters Australia, in which Himiko turns into the 7th Hersher. A Hersher, if you don't know, is a godlike being which is born from the Honkai, usually manifesting in a person. In this
Crazy
case,
OP,
Himiko.
it's
The entire squad was burnt to a crisp, other than Hua. During the chaos, a soldier by the name of Kevin kills the Hersher with his newly found ice powers. After Himiko's death, Hua was isolated and alone. She was discriminated as the only survivor of the squad, being called the Fire Witch's little birdie.
Oof.
1 year after the 7th Hersher, Hua participated in a mission to test the newly made 10th Divine Keys. A Divine Key is a tool made from a Hersher's body. Usually only one key can be made, however, as the 10th Hersher was a hive mind of puppets, multiple Divine Keys can be made with it. However, the so-called test of divine keys was a lie. The truth of this mission was rather to test a faster method to making mantis soldiers using Ichor. Ichor is an agent which gives people powers of a Honkai beast via physical trauma, turning them into mantis soldiers. In Hua's case, it was Himiko and her powerlessness against the Honkai. So naturally, she survived and became a mantis, gaining the powers of the Honkai beast Garuda, which gave her an extended lifespan and being unable to forget. Spoiler alert, those powers would be very detrimental to her. A few days after that, she was given a treatment of a thing called Swara. In short, Swara is a genetic treatment used to stimulate a subject's brain, making them almost superhuman. Now her getting that and becoming a mantis is very beneficial for her, as she would be able to participate in many missions very young, such as the battle with the final Hersher on the moon. But don't mistake her being super overpowered like Kevin, who is much more powerful. So to counter that, Hua was very strong in the mental side of things. Because of that, she was given the 8th Divine Key, upon Huan Down, which was capable of mental attacks. She uses the Key of Sentience in many ways. However, if she used it too many times, she would eventually burn many memories. But she still uses it many times, such as in the event called the Tragedy of Binding, in which she used the Divine Key's first power, Blade of Taishuan, against the 11th Hersher. Anyway, skipping ahead, after fighting the final Hersher, she and some others enter the current era after a long nap and begins implementing Project Ember. As mentioned in my previous video about Kevin, Hua and a few others were part of a project to defeat the Honkai in the current era known as Project Save. A part of Save was given to her in the form of Project Ember. This project would involve the passing down of previous era knowledge to the people of the current era. It started off alright, spreading the myth of the celestial Jinwei as a god who has knowledge from beyond was a simple task. However, this project would eventually fail, as the Honkai grew more powerful as a result, spawning many powerful creatures, such as Chi-Yu, who would eventually kill Hua's friends. As a result, Project Ember was removed, which eventually stopped spawning the more powerful Honkai beasts. After thousands of years, her lack of forgetting memories, gaining a longer life thanks to her being a mantis, and losing her friends, eventually made her grow cold and distant from everyone, gaining a fate worse than death, doomed to an eternal loneliness. Following a code of no mercy for the corrupted, killing anyone who was infected by the Honkai, no matter how much or how little. However, as she was mostly alone, dealing with the Honkai was getting tougher. So, she decides to adopt 7 children who became her disciples and open a school called the School of Taishuan. She taught the disciples how to control Swara, or Blade Mantra as it would come to be known as in the current era. Expanding on what Swara is, I mentioned that Swara stimulates the mind, but what it actually does is allow some people with it to manipulate Honkai energy to make things happen by believing it can be made. Think of it as a random bullshit go kind of thing. After a few years, Hua and the school would go through a change in leadership. Hua's disciples, specifically the second, Su Mei, planned to kill the celestial Jinwei, as she believed that their master was leading them down a terrible and dark path in the form of Hua's code. This eventually led to Hua's death by her 7 disciples. Now, the events that come after happen in a visual novel called Saga of Shattered Swords, or Seven Swords for short. The visual novel tells the story of what the disciples are doing after killing Hua and Otto's journey to find her with Sushan, whilst Hua heals thanks to her super regeneration. Now, it's not finished and never will be because of reasons, and it's also not translated officially. However, if you want to give it a read, links in the description. So in short, Hua was very weak thanks to her death and the breaking of her blade mantra for some reason. Eventually, Otto found the weak Hua, which led to him making a deal with her. She works under him while he protects the city of Shenzhou. This eventually brings us up to the events of a great manga called Second Eruption, which tells the story of a girl named Siren, the current era's second Herrscher. But we're not talking about her. So during the events of the manga, she meets a girl by the name of Chen Li Shui. She taught her many things, but Hua eventually left her when Li Shui called Fu Hua master, as she was reminded of the past. After many years, she met her again and was ready to fight Siren, which led to Fu Hua using her divine key to stop the Herrscher, which also led to her burning her many memories apart. After some time, Li Shui dies, Fu Hua recovers with many lost memories, and now we reach to the events of Honkaiimpact 3rd, where Fu Hua was sent by Schicksal to overlook Kiana's progress of growing and becoming the vessel of the dead second Herrscher, which eventually led to the events of Final Lesson. During those events, she disobeys Otto by fighting for the good guys at the cost of a bullet to her head. Now, she was still technically alive, by the way, as she transfers her consciousness to the 8th Divine Key using its Zeroth power. She would help Kiana as a guardian angel until she fought Kevin and was sealed. During that time, Otto brought Hua's body back to life, accidentally giving birth to a confused Herrscher of Sentience, which has the memories of Fu Hua. As such, she remembered the bullets that he gave her, so in return, she gave Otto a quick knock into the head and fought many people until Hua's consciousness was released by Kevin to be with the Herrscher. She would eventually get her body back by Kiana, while the Herrscher, now more passive, stays in her body for a while.
Oh boy.
Many key events took place after the Herrscher of Sentience, which changed Fu Hua, such as the events of Colliston, where Fu Hua eventually overcame her odds with an old disciple by moving on from the past that she eventually remembers. Later on the moon, where she had to say goodbye to an old friend who was named a hero, and eventually finding a lonely and grown-up painter of the stars, who both later fought the abyss of the Sea of Quanta, protecting a world from her destruction. Fu Hua's journey was covered in loneliness from beginning to end.
Yeah, she's been through a lot.
The torch of humanity to the current era. Now, she's truly capable of breathing freedom and can do what she wants with everyone else who she can call friends around her. Now, as for the Martial Hua in Honkai Star Rail, firstly, we know almost nothing about her apart from the quotes. And also, I feel that she will embody the celestial Jinwei XP of Hua, as according to the quote, she has quite a similar code to No Mercy for the Corrupted, but applied to the Abominations of Abundance, which would be kind of fun in my opinion.
Oh, Crow the Corvid. I recognize that name. I think one of his videos was also on this playlist before. Maybe that Kevin video. But yeah, I just definitely that was more one I maybe some like new details and stuff. I don't remember that visual novel thing. At least maybe if it may kind of sounds familiar, but I remember that visual novel being brought up. But yeah, that was a good video. That was a good video. It just more so reiterating Fuha's like story that I've learned about before. But I'm guessing that word, that XP. I'm guessing that means like, you know, when they have like the same character but not maybe something like that, like a character that's like similar, inspired from, or like like pretty much the same design, but not the same character kind of thing from in like a different game in their same like, you know, universe thing, or like their games pretty much. So yeah, I can't find the words right now, but like their games. Maybe that's what inspired it. That was a lore guide for, you know, HSR like player. That's for like the Honkai Star Rail video characters, but people players. Jeez, help me. I'm tripping up, but yeah, this last video here, for today, the entire story of Honkaiimpact 3rd in 20 minutes by Homu Labs, finishing it off, only uploaded 1 year ago, and it's only a year old because it turned 8 days ago. It turned a year old, or it would have been like 11 months. So that's crazy. But the entire story in 20 minutes, and look at that. Next thing is everything we know about the story of part 2. We got part 2 after this. This is going to be the final part 1 Honkai video. It's the entire story in 20 minutes. What a journey! What a ride! Let's cap it off here, shall we?
Honkaiimpact 3rd is one of the longest ongoing narratives created by Hoyoverse, with its lore spanning over 8 years worth of content. The question that most people have in the beginning is, what is the Honkai? Well, Honkai can actually mean 3 different things depending on the context used in the game. The most common use refers to the Honkai phenomena, a mysterious and destructive force that plagues Earth in Honkaiimpact 3rd. The Honkai usually grows alongside technological advancements of civilizations, manifesting through plagues, natural disasters, and even monsters such as zombies and Honkai beasts. The second meaning refers to Honkai energy, which causes the Honkai phenomena. Honkai energy is extremely dangerous to humans due to the radiation it emits, but it powers almost everything in the story, from the battles it's used in combat to the mechs and other weapons. Lastly, the third meaning, it refers to the Cocoon of Finality, a higher dimensional being and the main perpetrator of the Honkai phenomena. Previous era, a highly advanced period from 50,000 years ago. The Cocoon of Finality trapped Earth in a 50,000 year loop where every time the Earth is destroyed, it gets reset. The previous era is the previous cycle, and many technologies from that time were preserved or reproduced in the current era. Valkyries are a group of female warriors enhanced by a genetic imprint known as stigmata, and they are the main force tasked with fighting the Honkai. There are 2 types of stigmata: natural, which awakens on its own in selected individual, and artificial, an attempt to recreate the stigmata technology in the current era, though it's far from perfect. The person responsible for copying the stigmata technology in the current era is Ado Apocalypse, the overseer of Shixal, the main organization on Earth tasked with fighting the Honkai. Other notable organizations include Anti-Entropy, which used to be part of Shixal but broke away due to disagreements with Ado's methods. Instead of human warriors, Anti-Entropy uses mechs powered by Honkai energy. The sovereign of Anti-Entropy is none other than Welt Yang, the first Herrscher. The last notable organization is Word Serpent, which traces its roots back to the previous era. They use previous era technology, and their main goal is to enact Project Stigma, a frightening plan from the previous era meant to end the Honkai at the cost of humanity itself. The leader of Word Serpent is Kevin Kaslana, a warrior from the previous era who survived in the current one. Honkai gives birth to powerful entities called Herrschers who can bend physical laws. Normally, Herrschers are under the influence of the Cocoon of Finality as they are projections of its powers. However, due to the sacrifice of a certain Herrscher from the previous era, the Herrschers of the current era are no longer tied to the Cocoon's influence. Additionally, the birth of a Herrscher is always accompanied by the formation of a Herrscher core, which you can think of as a source of power for a Herrscher, allowing them to draw Honkai into physical world and bend the laws of nature. Some Herrscher cores are also referred to as gems, but note that they are the same thing. Chapter 1 begins with Kiana Kaslana, May Raiden and Bronya Zajcik, 3 Valkyrie trainees sent to stop a rogue battleship powered by Honkai energy from destroying a city. After reaching the control room, they learn that the battleship was gifted to Kiana by an unknown party who also tasked her with gathering 4 keys, each corresponding to a Herschel gem left behind years ago during the second eruption when Sirin, the second Herschel, almost destroyed Earth. Suddenly, the microchip implanted in Bronia's brain is hacked by Cocolia, an anti-entropy agent, forcing her to attack Kiana and Mei. They manage to subdue her and they begin their journey to find the keys. Later, they find one of the keys, the Gem of Desire, in Shixal's Oceania branch, implanted in a young Valkyrie named Wendy. Due to the implant, Wendy lost her ability to walk and harbors deep feeling of hatred towards the people who did this to her. This hatred leads her to become the 4th Herrscher who has authority over wind. They stop Wendy, but Bronia's microchip is hacked again by Cocolia, who kidnaps both Wendy and Mei. Also, I forgot to mention, Mei is actually the 3rd Herrscher who has authority over lightning. Kiana, Teresa and Himeko team up to save them. They rescue Mei, but Wendy is killed by Cocolia. Bronia falls into a coma after burning the microchip in her head. To find a way to save Bronia, Teresa enters Shixal's secret library to search for a cure. This library can create a virtual world of events that happened in the past. Kiana follows Teresa and ends up witnessing the events of the second eruption when her mother, Cecilia Shariak, died fighting the Herrscher of the Void. But everything turns out to be an illusion created by Sirin to break Kiana's spirit and take over her body. Fu Hua, who was an undercover agent sent by Aro, kidnaps Kiana and brings her to Shixal HQ. In order to get Kiana back, Teresa decides to ally with Dr. Einstein and Tesla from Anti-Entropy. At the same time, it is revealed that Aro's goal was to revive the second Herrscher and that Kiana was a genetically modified clone created to house Sirin's consciousness. The Senfrea group infiltrates Shixal HQ, but it's too late to stop Aro's plan. The Herrscher of the Void takes over Kiana's body, and all attempts to fight her prove futile. The Herrscher even extracts the Gem of Conquest from Mei. Even Fu Hua, revolted by Aro's actions, turns on him, but Aro shoots her. Aro then reveals that his true plan is to have a Valkyrie sacrifice herself to stimulate Kiana's emotions, allowing her to regain control over her body and becoming a human who can use Herrscher powers. Unfortunately, Aro's plan succeeds after Himeko, guided by Fu Hua's consciousness, dons a powerful battlesuit from the previous era. This gives Himeko enough power to fight the Herrscher of the Void, but she ends up sacrificing herself to bring Kiana back. The events pick up 4 months later. Kiana is still missing and the Saint Freya group heads to Ark City to make contact with a broker named Great Serpent, who has information about Kiana's whereabouts. By the time they arrive, Grey Serpent has already been killed by Rita, a Shixal agent sent by Ado. Afterward, we learn that Grey Serpent is still alive. In fact, he's not even a human but a mass-produced robot behind the World Serpent organization. Their goal is to free their leader, Kevin Kaslana, from the Sea of Quanta. To explain this briefly, the Sea of Quanta is a chaotic space with its own unique laws. The sea also contains the so-called bubble worlds, which, as the name suggests, are unstable worlds born from the sea.
If I knew absolutely nothing going into this would be a crazy watch. It'd be like with all these terms and stuff, but after knowing all this, and having stuff broken down already, I'm following this pretty good. It's a pretty good summary. But you definitely have to have at least a little bit of knowledge prior.
Entropy ended up in the Sea of Quanta and remained there to ensure that Kevin wouldn't escape. The group splits into two. Teresa, Bronya and Einstein go to the Deep, an ancient city from the previous era, after responding to Cocolia's emergency request for help, while May and Tesla continue to search for Kiana. The next few chapters focus on Bronya. We learn about her past, how she was raised in an orphanage in Siberia by Cocolia together with Rosalia, Lilia and Sele. Unfortunately, after an experiment a few years back, Sele got trapped into the Sea of Quanta. Oh, and one important thing about Sele is that she has another personality born from her stigmata, which I'm gonna call Red Sele from now on. Cocolia's group is being attacked by Shixal forces since she possesses the Gem of Desire, but Cocolia threw the gem into the Sea of Quanta to force cooperation from Einstein and the rest. Oh, did I mention that the Deep has a way to access the Sea of Quanta? And things get even more complicated when it is revealed that Cocolia was secretly working with Grey Serpent, who promised to bring Sele back from the sea, and Bronya is forced to dive into the Sea of Quanta alone. There, she meets a young boy named Joachim, who makes her undergo several trials in different bubble worlds where she reunites with Sele. The young boy is later revealed to be Welt Yang, who crafted these trials to pass on his Herrscher powers to Bronya, who becomes the new Herrscher of Reason. Meanwhile, Cele finds herself in a bubble world created from Kevin Kaslana's memories, the leader of War Serpent and the ancestor of Kiana's family. Inside this bubble world, Cele witnesses how Kevin and his companions failed to stop the Herrscher of Corruption from destroying the last remaining human cities 50,000 years ago. Kevin retrieves the Gem of Desire and is finally able to leave the Sea of Quanta, defeating both Bronya and Weld. Thankfully, everyone survives and Bronya and Cele are reunited after many years. In the following chapters, we see how Kiana tries to cope with the events that happened 4 months ago. Overwhelmed by guilt, Kiana attempts to end her own life, but she is stopped by Fu Hua, who attached her consciousness to Kiana before being shot by Aro. With Fu Hua's help, the Herrscher of the Void's consciousness is suppressed, and Kiana gains partial control over her Void powers. Meanwhile, Word Serpent tries to blow up an entire city using a bomb powered by Honkai energy. Kiana, using her Herrscher powers, takes the bomb into the stratosphere where it detonates and Kiana is hit with the Honkai energy from the explosion. As she falls, Kiana is caught by Durandal, the strongest Schicksal Valkyrie, who captures her and takes Kiana to a Schicksal base in Africa. Kiana is unable to escape Durandal until the base is attacked by Word Serpent. Using the Chaos as cover, Kiana escapes but is confronted by Kevin. Fu Hua, who is revealed to be Kevin's old companion and a survivor from the previous era, stalls Kevin enough for Kiana to escape. Consumed by anger and regret, Kiana teleports to Nagazora, the city where she first met Mei and Bronya 3 years earlier. Mei and Tesla pick up a signal left by Kiana and arrive at Nagazora. They follow her and meet a homeless girl named Sora, who, along with other children, lives in the ruins of the city. The children are cared for by an individual they call Sensei, revealed to be Raven, an agent of Word Serpent who is there to kill Kiana. While they initially work together to fight Kiana, Mei and Raven eventually fight. After witnessing Mei's determination, Raven relents and allows her to reunite with Kiana. The two are reunited once more, but this time it is revealed that the Herrscher cores are poisoning Kiana and she only has 2 months left to live. After learning this harrowing truth, Mei desperately searches for a cure, and the only one who promises a solution is none other than Kevin Kaslana. Kevin tells Mei that she must become the Herrscher of Thunder again, which will remove the Gem of Conquest from Kiana's body, giving them enough time to implement Project Stigma and save the world from Honkai. To do this, Mei agrees to join Word Serpent and help them. While all this happens, Aro and Kevin form an alliance. Aro opens up an imaginary singularity in Nagazora, and Mei absorbs the Honkai energy to become the Herrscher of Thunder once more. After hearing what happened, Kiana tries to stop Mei from leaving, but after a heart-wrenching conversation, Mei departs with the Word Serpent. Mei, now a Word Serpent agent, is sent with Raven to a tropical island called Coral Island to subdue a newly formed Herrscher, the Herrscher of Ice. It turns out that the Herrscher of Ice is a former Schicksal Valkyrie named Anna Shariak. They also meet Owl, another Word Serpent agent. Owl and Anna knew each other as Anna saved his life a few years prior. Owl betrays Raven and Mei to protect Anna, and they both end up combining into a super Herrscher called the Herrscher of Rhymestar. Mei and Durandal manage to defeat the monster and obtain both the core of Ice and the core from the newly formed Herrscher of Stars. Remember that a while ago Ado shot Fu Hua in the head? Well, while all of this was
Herrscher of Rhymestar, I don't know, I don't know if that's new, but that's definitely not the freshest on my mind.
Awoke in Fu Hua's body. Fu Hua is immortal, so after Aro
Everything
shot,
else though I
her
remember.
into a healing pod, but Fu Hua transferred her consciousness before she was shot, so there was no one in her body to wake up, which turned out to be the perfect opportunity for the Honkai to take over. The Herrscher of Sentience, who had Fu Hua's memories when she woke up, killed one of Ado's clones, destroyed one of Word Serpent's bases, and fought Kevin, after which she gained possession of the feather that housed Fu Hua's real consciousness. From there, the Herrscher of Sentience and Fu Hua visit Mount Taishuan, a place where Fu Hua lived for many millennia. There, the Herrscher of Sentience has a whole identity crisis until she realizes that she's not the real Fu Hua. Meanwhile, Kiana and Bronya also visited the same place to look for some techniques left behind by Fu Hua that could help them control their Herrscher powers. After they arrive, they witness Fu Hua's memory spanning her 50,000 years life, which turned out to be planned by the Herrscher of Sentience to make them learn more about Fu Hua. Then, the Herrscher of Sentience makes Kiana and Bronya decide who is the better Fu Hua. Of course, Kiana and Bronya choose the Fu Hua they know, and the Herrscher of Sentience throws a temper tantrum, but they end up defeating her. After a while, the Herrscher of Domination, who has the power to copy negative human emotions and create up to 1,000 puppets from them, is wreaking havoc around the world. The first part of this arc focuses on Cele and the dynamic between her and her counterpart. Cele is slowly becoming more mature and the other Cele grows scared, thinking that Cele will no longer need her. The Hersher of Domination tries to exploit that fear, but both Celes manage to overcome it and Cele gives the other Cele full control of the body for the first time. The latter part of the arc focuses on Kiana. After a failed attempt to stop the Hersher of Domination, Kiana gets dragged into the Theater of Domination, a separate dimension belonging to the Hersher. There, the Hersher of Domination wakes up the Hersher of the Void inside Kiana by showing Kiana proof that Himeko is indeed dead. We finally learn that Kiana and the Hersher of the Void personality are both personalities born from Sirin's wishes. Kiana represents her wish to live a normal life, and the Hersher of the Void is her wish for revenge. Kiana defeats the Hersher of the Void and gains full control over the Hersher powers. After a brief reunion and goodbye with Himeko's after image inside the Gem of Haste, Kiana defeats the Hersher of Domination and becomes the Hersher of Flame Saiyan, commanding both the powers of Void and Fire. The time has finally come for Aro to put his 500 years long plan into motion and bring back his childhood friend and love of his life, Kalen Kaslana. Aro resigns as Schicksal Overseer and passes down the title to Teresa. He then lures the Senfreya group and Anti-Entropy to Colosten, where the old Schicksal HQ was located, using the Core of Domination as bait. When they arrive, Aro does his best to get on everyone's nerves, secretly preparing trials and obstacles for them to overcome and grow, while also furthering his plan. We finally learn that Durandal is the real Kiana, who was thought to be dead for 10 years. With her real identity revealed, Durandal teams up with Kiana to deal with Aro once and for all. Aro had amassed an infinite amount of imaginary energy by forming a connection with the imaginary tree, becoming a false god. However, he still couldn't realize his plan, but he used Kiana's hatred for him to make her use the power of the Hersher of the Void on him, which allowed his soul to free itself from the constraints of the tree. This enabled Aro to reach the Wedge of the World, where he created a branching timeline in which Kalen never died 500 years ago, finally realizing his long-lasting wish at the cost of his life. After Aro's story concludes, it's time to cover Elysian Realm, which I'm not going to do in this video. Look, Elysian Realm is so I'll link you some of my other videos where I do a full story recap for it. Please watch those to fully
we
understand
watched
it.
those.
Kevin has finally implemented...
I was gonna say we are kind of moving, and there's even some things that like that are getting pre-explained. Yeah, the Elysian Realm is very, very big. I remember that one though. I remember that. I mean, I remember all that. The only thing that was like kind of like, you know, a bit new was the Hersher of like Ice one with May. I don't know if I watched too much stuff about that. I forget.
Stigma, which placed every person on Earth inside a giant collective dream. He also hijacked the authority of finality from the cocoon. Project Stigma aims to merge the consciousness of all humans into a giant dream, which in turn would give birth to physical manifestations of human ideas, which are basically living stigmata who can coexist with the Honkai. All the people who had a naturally awakened stigmata were transported to the moon, and all active Hershers were thrown into the Sea of Quanta. There, May and Kiana finally reunite, and with the help of some familiar faces, they manage to unlock the mental constraints on their authorities and escape from the Sea of Quanta and confront Kevin on the moon. Unfortunately, Kevin outmatches them in combat. This is when Mistalin, a Word Serpent agent behind Project Stigma, traps Kiana, May and Bronya inside a dream, intending to take control over the powers of the Hersher of Reason. As the story progresses, we learn that Mistalin's true goal was to help Bronya awaken as the Hersher of Truth, the complete form of the Hersher of Reason. Afterward, the group returns to Earth, only to find that most of it has already been consumed by Project Stigma. Anti-Entropy and Schicksal come up with a plan together to stop Kevin. Durandal, Fuhua, Teresa and Cele enter the giant dream to steer the will of the humans trapped there and make them want to wake up on their own. While there, they also steal a part of Kevin's authority. May reclaims the lost authority of Origin, which once belonged to Alicia, becoming the new Hersher of Origin. Kiana, after absorbing all Hersher authorities, is recognized by the Cocoon as the true Hersher of Finality. Then, they battle Kevin one final time and defeat him, finally surpassing his ambition. Kiana gets the full authority of Finality and becomes the new goddess of Earth. Since Earth is still recovering from Project Stigma, Kiana remains on the moon to siphon all the Honkai energy there and find a way to convert Honkai energy into regular energy so that it won't threaten humanity in the future. And this is pretty much the story of part 1 summarized, but we're not done yet. No. There's still part 1.5 which is split into 2 big halves. So let's start with Cele's arc. Cele is lured into a bubble world that's actually 2 bubble worlds existing in the same space. Red Cele and Blue Cele are separated. As they search for each other, they meet Vita, a cheerful and bubbly girl who offers to serve as their guide. Later, we found out that Vita is from Venus and that 250 million years ago, Venus also fought the Cocoon of Finality but was destroyed. The 2 bubble worlds are on the brink of destruction, and the one behind this is being referred to as Sa, the abyss of the Sea of Quanta. Sa is a being that evolved to be similar to the Cocoon of Finality and is planning to destroy the 2 bubble worlds to harness the energy resulted from their destruction. To stop Sa, they need to create a new Herrscher that is born in the Sea of Quanta and use its authority to cut the connection between Sa and the bubble worlds. Vita is revealed to be Sa's proxy, a clone of Sa that is going around the Sea of Quanta to harness energy. It is also revealed that Sa was the last survivor of Venus and gained some power from the Sea of Quanta. After millions of years of growing, Sa became a being similar to the Cocoon of Finality. After Cele becomes the Herrscher of Rebirth, she manages to defeat Vita and cut off Sa's connection to the 2 bubble worlds. Vita then reveals that this was part of her plan to free herself from Sa's clutches and be free. After thanking Cele, Vita disappears. The second half happens on a dwarf planet at the edge of the solar system called Phosphorus. Fuhua is teleported there by a mysterious force. There, Fuhua meets 7 city representatives who all look like child versions of Vita. As Honkai beasts keep appearing on Phosphorus, Fuhua and the small Vitas begin investigating. Soon, Fuhua learns that Phosphorus was, in fact, created from the seeds carried by Grisio, one of her fellow flame chasers from the previous era, while implementing Project Arc. Project Arc was supposed to be an alternative to Project Stigma, and Grisio was tasked with finding a suitable planet without Honkai to rebuild humanity. Sa lured Grisio here and stole the genomes from the Arc to create life. Grisio fell into a deep slumber, but Fuhua wakes her up. We also learned that soon after Vita left the bubble world where she fought Cele, she was captured by Sa and imprisoned inside a small pocket space in the Sea of Quanta. With Fuhua's help, Vita escapes. The one who brought Fuhua here was Su, another flame chaser and the same person who threw Kevin into the Sea of Quanta 1,500 years ago. After ascending to a higher plane, Su was able to observe our world and came up with a plan to stop Sa by bringing Fuhua here. Fuhua, Grisio, Vita, and Miss Talin managed to push Sa back, and just before Sa was about to flee, Kiana fires a beam of energy at it from the moon, essentially eradicating all its roots from the proper world. Inside the Sea of Quanta, Sa is...
You know, I thought that like her going bang was like just something else, but that actually how she like fired the beam, that's awesome. That's fine.
Vita takes this opportunity to kill it and take over its authority. Now that she is completely free, Vita leaves Phosphorus and her story will continue on Mars during part 2.
Okay, so part 2 is pick part 1.5 is picking up at I've been struggling with words all video. I apologize. But I wasn't even that like talkative today. But part 2 is picking up where 1.5 left off, kinda sorta, I guess it seems. I like the Venus stuff. I'll learn more about that, how it like ties together coming up here, I guess, because yeah, this next video for next time is everything we know about the story of part 2. So starting off with part 2, and we're 162 out of 211 in the playlist here. And there is, I just, like I said, sometimes I just do a little quick scroll here. There are some videos, it's still some longer ones, definitely, like it'll still be a bit, but there's some shorter ones as well. So even though that seems like a crazy number, anyway, it actually might not be that long we have left on this playlist, which is gonna be crazy because this is like, yeah, entirety of lore and stuff. Yeah, as far as this playlist go, because, you know, there are some things that I might check out about the other, parts that I haven't. Like, I keep mentioning like the manga stuff maybe, and maybe some other stuff about that are like in part 1 that I just didn't peep yet. But for this playlist, that looks like the end of part 1, and next time we'll get part 2 stuff, which I'm actually very excited for, because like I feel like I don't know too much about part 2 right now, and I'm interested in learning some more, and yeah, that the whole story of Honkaiimpact third part 1, part 1.5, APHO. That was all a banger. That was so awesome. That was very good story. Just with so many characters, with so much depth and plot to them. Like, man, just the main 3 alone: Bronya, Kiana, Himiko. Or I'm sorry, I meant to say Mei, but Himiko as well. Fuha, Kevin, Otto, all the flame chasers. Like we have like Mobius. We got Sele. We got Advita, Welt. Like there's so many characters here. Alicia. Just really a really good story. And I'm glad I got to this point where I kind of am familiar with it as well. And yeah, would be interesting to like actually check out more of the game itself too, like to see after hearing all the lore, like seeing it play out. So I am interested in doing that at some point in life as well. But yeah, for now though, till next time, part 2. Part 2. Gonna be exciting. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like or dislike, subscribe or don't subscribe. It's always up to you. I will see you guys in the next video you watch of me. Also, tomorrow, as I'm recording this, probably gonna get out a few days after, but happy Halloween if you celebrate. If not, have a good day. But for now, though, good boy.